Dear Convo friends, happy Friday. And well, if you kind of live on LinkedIn like me, you probably have heard of this kind of new large language model that Google introduced called Gemini. Gemini is supposed to be powering Bard as well, which it actually is in about 170 countries, but not, as we can read here, in Europe. So the EU and the UK, we don't get Gemini Pro as the underlying large language model for BART yet because of regulatory reviews, which makes sense, I guess. We are always a bit late with good reasons. And in the meantime, that means that our BART is still running on Lambda or Palm, actually. So I went to my BART and because I'm in Hilversum, the Netherlands, I by default get the Dutch version. So in Dutch, I asked it, op welk LLM draai je? Which large language model do you use under the hood? And it answers correctly, I run on the Lambda taalmodel, a large language model designed by Google AI. It's trained on a dataset of text and code, and it's capable of generating text, translating languages, generate different kinds of creative content, blah, blah, blah. So I switched to English because I know it can do that. So I ask it, can you demo the Gemini LLM? And it introduces the Gemini LLM, blah, 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 blah. Some examples. Okay, cool. And then I ask it, can we use it here in BART right now? And it says, yes, of course you can use the Gemini LLM in BART right now. It's been upgraded to use the Gemini LLM as its primary model, which is interesting. So, check question, I ask it, what's the underlying LLM now? As of today, the underlying LLM for BART is the Gemini LLM. And this is such a great example of that it hasn't got a clue of the context, even though I'm logged in here in Hilversum. I start out in Dutch and I ask it again in Dutch, which LLM are you using right now? And in Dutch it answers, op dit moment gebruik ik het Gemini LLM taalmodel. At this moment, I use the Gemini LLM language model. And this is, of course, not true. And I know it's not true, so that allows me to fact check. But why would I have any kind of inkling to kind of keep prompting like, are you sure? Are you sure? Because I mean, it's right here, black and white, right? So I say, but I'm in the EU. And it says, I apologize for the error in my previous response. The Gemini LLM is not currently available in the EU due to ongoing regulatory reviews. Now, this is not a hallucination. It's much worse. It's one of the it's a violation of one of the maxims of the cooperative principle, in the sense that it's the maximum of quality, right? That in a conversation you are going to try your very best to give as much relevant information as necessary, not more, but certainly also not less. So unless you know that Gemini is not available in the EU, you're never going to find out from Bard because it just won't tell you that. You have to actively ask for it. And this is, in my opinion, is much worse than a hallucination because it presupposes that you already know the answer to your question before asking it. So, in order to ask the right question, you first need to know the answer, and that is completely stupid.